Board of Education meeting for dialing Olivia like Lily independent school do all the call to order and approval of the agenda. And we're just getting ready here. We're gonna jump right into it. So with new business, just the business of the night. Number one is bold school board goals. And I know last year when we did goals, Mr. Menton gave us his goals, and then we decided to make them both board goals and superintendent goals. And I guess we can decide what we'd like to do. Does anybody have any school board goals that they would like to work on this year? I have one that I was thinking about, and it has to do with communication and chain of command. And I guess it's for both. I mean, it's just you do a good job of keeping us informed, and I guess communication wise, it goes both ways. So I just somehow I kind of weave this into you, but it's more of a board goal. Just when we hear things in public, and we don't know an answer to them, it would be nice if we would go right to Mr. Menton. I don't know how, I need to figure out how to phrase this. I was going to do that and I didn't, but somehow if we can go right to him and find out yay, nay, like whoever you're talking to say, you know what, let me find out about that and get back to you, and talk to Mr. Menton. We hired him to do this job, and
I would take it a step further. Have them talk to me.
Oh, right. And yeah.
A lot of times I think that there have been some times where I've dealt with stuff as outside of part of the working day. And then somebody brings their side of a story to a board member, and then you hear that half of it. And then when you come and talk to me about it, now I don't know how to not tell you what I've been dealing with the person involved, and you've only got half the story. So if somebody brings you an issue, have them come to me.
Okay.
And there's a flip side to that too. There are some people that don't want to, but it's a community concern.
Yeah.
So that's why it's getting brought up too.
Because then the board member comes to you.
Yeah, I suppose, but I still need to know, who is involved, and but ideally, if they don't want to come and see me, that worries me about myself. So
just assure people he's really approachable.
I am. I'm not a mean guy, usually.
I don't think
Probably either way, it'd be good if somebody approaches one of us to go to you with it, regardless. Sometimes I hate to say if someone bring something up to me, I hate to be like, oh, go to Mr. Menton, where
Right.
maybe
It does
I could get a
look like
hold
you're
of
pawning
him
it
and
off.
you could handle it from there.
Right.
Yeah, maybe start with, would you be comfortable?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if they're not, I would want to know that.
I just feel like no matter what it is, you're going to want to be informed,
Mhm.
even if
Right.
they're not comfortable going to you or.
Right. And we do need to, it can't be anonymous. I do need to be able to
Yeah.
follow up
Mm-hmm.
with somebody and make sure that I know the whole story
Yeah.
before we move on.
Mm-hmm.
And depending what it is too, sometimes the board should be aware of different things also. It shouldn't just be the one board member, and the board needs to be aware, especially if there are more than one person in the community that wants it to be brought up at a school board meeting. I'm not going to say I'm not going to bring it up if they're asking for it to be brought up.
I think that's a good point. I think if that's part of the communication, I guess, is if there's something that we want to discuss, making sure everybody has that same information. What I try to do
before the board meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I try
Then
to
we can have a
do
discussion.
is if somebody brings a question to me or something, I try to respond to all of you and with the answer to that. Just because it's not fair that one person gets all of the information.
Right.
I also feel too, one of the goals should be to balance our budget too. We're always operating in a deficit, and I think we need to get our finances in check. Because when we come up with a budget and it's already in the red going into the year, we're spending more than what we're bringing in. We need to bring that in check.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lindsay, do you want to comment on that?
Well, I think that's always a goal, and I think besides the funds that we've been working really hard on, starting with last fiscal year into this fiscal year, I think that is the goal that we've been working on.
Yeah, it's definitely a good goal.
Well, and sometimes there is a reason for deficit spending though, because like for instance, in food service, we have to, the state said we have to. So sometimes you just can't look at all of the funds. You have to look at them individually and determine the reason why. Or sometimes you might have in the general fund, you might have a big equipment purchase or something, or a specific project that you set money aside for, or you save it in reserve, which causes a deficit spend, but it's not a deficit spend because in total your expenditures always are over your revenues. It's just because you set funds aside and you have fund balance there to get that project done. It just happens in 1 year where you've been saving for it in previous years. So,
And we saw that last year, right? Or when we set this year's budget, we saw that because we've got that money saved in LTFM dollars for the roof, right?
You got it. Yep. We just have to, when we're talking about the budget and it's being approved, we just have to talk about that and make it continue to teach about that, because there is a reason for it. I mean, when you just look at revenue and expenditures, yes, it's not look goofy, but there's a reason for it.
The only thing though, Lindsay, is if you have money set aside in a fund and you transfer that fund into the expenses because you paid for it, that's not decreasing it. You're just transferring money. That's not deficit spending. That's if you're
paying for the expenses in that year above the revenue in that fund because you set money aside from previous years. So in previous years, your revenues in that reserve, so let's use LTFM for an example. In previous years, our expenditures have been way under the revenue. So then it builds up this reserve called LTFM. Now that reserve is built up and now you have expenses in excess of revenue because you've been saving for a project. So it does, your expenses are larger than your revenue.
But I think when you look at our finances for the last 10 years, we have definitely spent down our reserves, and we need to.
Yep, and that's something we've been working really hard on to come back from.
But when I've noticed on some of the cases, Lindsay, where we'll bring something up and it'll be the answer is no, we don't have the funds for that. We don't have the extra funds. And then all of a sudden something else comes up and then all of a sudden the funds show up. And I always try and figure out, okay, if we didn't have them for this, how did we end up with them for this? Where do those funds come from?
That's because the school finances has different, by state statute, it has different reserves, and those reserves can only be spent on specific things. So unfortunately, in that instance, it's a case by case, depending on what the situation is or what the expenditure is and what category of financing it fits under.
Okay, so just saying like this fall, we have some extra monies that we spent towards employees that we weren't expecting on that. I mean, not out of the norm anyway, for wages and things, because we hired a assistant principal and some other things went on. So those funds come from where?
That is it depends on which position we're talking about, because everything has its own UFAR code and gets coded a certain way.
Okay, because I know earlier in the year we didn't have funds for anything like that, and then all of a sudden we found the funds for that, and I was just kind of concerned or wondering where those came from.
For hiring people?
Yeah, because we didn't, in the beginning of the year, we didn't have funds for an extra assistant principal, but then all of a sudden we need one and now we got the funds. I didn't understand where that came
But we
from.
didn't hire a counselor.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that
we
fund,
lost the council.
those wages moved in over here and then added
Yes.
some to
Yeah.
them, whatever.
Yeah, so it was a
Not a wash, but
relatively a wash, relatively.
move from one to the other. Okay.
Yeah, yep, it's just
Okay.
a budget adjustment that happened
Okay.
just because of a change in transition, if you will, from when the budget was done to what really happened.
Okay.
So I think there's two things. Obviously, balancing the budget is a goal. Maybe doing more of this, Lindsay. Just it's as clear as mud to the average person, school finance, because it doesn't make sense to most people. And I've learned so much in the last year that I just can't I can't see how the average person would grasp that. You know, you've got money for a roof, but you cannot spend that money on books. Well, why? So
Because
maybe
it's in its own, a fund of its own, that's why.
yeah.
But like, and I don't want to get into this now because this has to do with school board stuff, but I was going to ask you about the CDR funds too. And I noticed a big hike, a big surge in the end of June, and then it dropped dramatically the end of July, and now it's on its way up. So the CDRs, we're putting money in there. Are we taking funds from other accounts and dumping it back into the CDRs? That's the question I have, but this is not the time to put
Well,
that
we can
in.
ask, yeah.
So something like regularly inform on school finance and budget.
Yeah,
So,
something, yeah,
yeah, we can maybe like, this is a jumping off point, maybe we can finesse them to sound better than what
Yeah,
they're sounding
yeah.
currently.
Yeah.
And then send them out to everybody to make sure that everybody's good with them. Anything else? All right.
Well, I do have another
Go
one.
ahead.
So if we're gonna go down to goals for school board and stuff, I truly feel too that we as a school board need to sit down and dialogue about the curriculum that's in the school. Yes, we have teachers that teach it and stuff, but we need to be well informed of what our students are learning. And like I've brought up at the other meetings about the whole CRT thing, so that doesn't get snuck in. We need to know that we know that we know. So if anyone has questions, we can say, we absolutely know for sure that this is not going to be taught. We're not going to allow that, or this is what's being taught. And we just need to know our curriculum better instead of not knowing it and just assuming that it's all okay.
So maybe that's something that Brett, we can work on getting that from the departments.
Like a curriculum map?
Yeah. Let's do that.
All right, anything else?
I just talked to Mr. Benson about an idea I had, just when the teachers have their work sessions, or not work, I don't know, what do they call those? When they have their days off.
Staff development days.
Staff development, there you go. I think it would be kind of fun to maybe have the opportunity to listen to that stuff. Because it
Some
would
of
be
it.
good information for a
Yeah.
lot of us.
Yeah, we talked,
And-
you mentioned this,
Yeah.
I think a couple years ago,
Yeah.
where I was talking about the top 20. I don't see why,
I think it would be interesting to listen and learn of what they're learning, because we can learn from it also as board members.
we've invited other businesses to come out. Yeah, I know Hometown Bank came and listened to some of the top 20 stuff, and
Yeah.
we could absolutely, when it's something like you don't want to hear about right to know and
Well, no, but I mean, no. No, but some of those really
Yeah.
interesting ones you
Yeah.
had, it was
really good.
it would have been really fun to even have the opportunity to go on a webinar and listen to it,
Yeah.
instead of having to actually go and be there, just listen to it on a, webinar or something.
Brett, that'll be your goal.
He said he was going to check on it. So
Yeah, we can do that.
yeah, because I think it would be very interesting for all board members, because you're never too old to learn
Yeah.
and
There's
learn
been some
something
really
new.
good stuff that we've
Yeah.
had, so.
I think that would be interesting.
I can send it out via email. You guys all check your school account.
They're very good.
All right, anything else from the school board side of things?
Off the top of my head.
All right, we'll move on
Hey,
to, Ryan, did you have any, sorry, right off the bat, but any school board goals that you would like to see the board work on? So far, we've done, I just mentioned communication and chain of command, like we will contact Mr. Menton. This is what I just have written down. Board members will contact Mr. Menton about community concerns prior to a board meeting so that, or anytime.
I would say any,
Anytime,
and I would say any concern, really.
any concerns.
When I know, you can still ask questions at the board meetings, but when I know ahead of time what that question is gonna be, I can actually have a prepared response to that. And, you know, I worry all the time that if I just come up with an answer, that it might just be
You've mentioned that numerous times.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but
Prior to a board meeting or anytime, I will fix this so that all board members can be informed and or questions can be answered. Teresa brought up balancing the budget, working on that. And then we also talked about, I don't know if this is really a goal, but it is a goal because we'd like to be regularly informed on school finance and the budget, like how things are working. And just informational, board would like to be informed on what is being taught in school. And Sandy also brought up that it would be fun to, not really a goal, but kind of within that, when like they're doing staff development, if they're doing something that kind of applies to the broader, you know, it's like we all could get something out of. We would like to be involved in that, so, or have the option.
No, that sounds good.
like when we did the Alice training, that certainly is something that anyone could get something good out of.
All right, anybody else have anything to? All right, move on to Mr. Menton.
All right. So on the surface, it looks like I've only written down two things, but the first thing is actually a really widespread goal. I want to fully implement the strategic plan that was put together that we adopted last month. And there's a lot going on in there. We've got those 4 focus areas, and there's specific deadlines stated in each one of those. And I want to make sure that is achieved. We had a couple times it came up during those meetings that, you know, how are you going to make sure this is implemented? And I remember at one of them, I think it was during the tornado, I said that I would just be absolutely embarrassed if we wasted all of your time getting, 40, 30 community members together and getting there, for 2 hours a night. If we were to set this aside, that would just be a huge slap in the face. So I want to make sure that gets done and focus on all 4 of those areas. And we have been. I think Brett's going to talk about some of that in his board report today. And so that's one thing. And then the other one is I want to fix our facilities. I want to build a clear plan for the direction of our facilities. And I'd like to see that again as soon as possible, because we've got some stuff we're going to bring up today that we've got some issues that need to be solved and solved quickly. So those are the 2 big ones, but I'm open. Last time you guys brought me some goals as well, so I'm fine with.
I kind of think the regularly informing on school finance and budget kind of is one of your goals. I mean, to make
That
sure
could be
that
mine.
happens.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
And balancing the budget. But, I mean, it's
Yeah. But that is all of
everybody's-
us. At some
yes,
point,
It is.
we put it together, and at some point, everybody votes on it. So
Right.
it's all of our.
I think what's crucial too, and when you're doing stuff like that, is having adequate time to discuss things and not do it the
Yes.
week that has to be
Yeah.
voted on.
And
Adequate time
that's
out.
happened at least twice in the last 6 months. And
Mhm.
the LTFM plan was one. And Lindsay and I and Amy, we've talked about it. And yeah, there was no reason that we couldn't have given that to you a month ahead of time. There were still some things that we were tweaking on there, but
Mhm.
yeah, and I feel bad about that. It's always just been approved at that June meeting, and yeah, nobody's ever questioned it before, I guess. So
But those are learning curves.
Yeah. yeah,
But yeah, it would be nice to have some of the things like ahead of time, like
Mhm.
more than just 4 days.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because if you have something going on that weekend or something, you really don't have a lot of time to focus on it. So,
yeah.
yeah. That would be
I'll put
nice.
that as a goal of mine.
I'd like to have at least a two week.
Anything else we're thinking here? My goal is now to like take these things and write them better. Actually,
That's your goal.
sound like goals,
Okay.
not what they sound like right now, which is just statements, so. But I guess my goal is to get that done and then I'll send them to everybody and make sure that we're all okay with them.
Okay.
So when you said there's a lot of things that we need to fix, is that in here somewhere? I
Oh, that'll
didn't see
be-
it in there.
It'll be coming up.
Okay.
It's part of my report.
All right, so that it for this part?
That's it. Ellie. TV's not turning on. Is anything on it? That's that beta.
Yeah.
No, it's not plugged in. That's okay.
I guess that was my next
So
one.
I would-
Brett, you want to move that camera,
Please.
please? Being more polite.
But
That could be
one
a
of
goal.
one of the goals.
Is it on?
TV's not on.
Use this one.
Oh, it's still black. There we go.
Anything?
There we go.
There we go.
So first, I gotta apologize that I use the same picture as every week. Can you see?
We like consistency.
I probably should go, yeah, a little closer. Thank you.
Ellie, could I have you stand by the microphone? That was a request somebody made a couple board meetings ago, and I got thanked last time, so.
Yeah, no problem. Not a lot to update, but kind of wanted to just tell you like the agenda, work to date, timeline, next steps is kind of all I have to go through tonight. And I wanted you to have a chance to ask any questions too. So work to date, the facility condition assessment complete, the educational adequacy assessment is complete. The strategic plan is complete, and right now we are working on budgeting all the options. So we came and met, was it last week or the week before, with the facility committee, and I just wanted to kind of go over a little bit of what came out of that. is we went through high level the different options that we showed last month at this board meeting. And some of the things that came out of it, we discussed the concession stand placement, maybe putting it closer to the home team, which makes sense. Another thing that was asked is adding restrooms with outdoor access. So basically on the corner of the building, they'd be indoor and outdoor bathrooms so that you have indoor, or you can go indoor to go to the bathroom when you're at a game. We talked about the parking lot size, and the recommended size was 250. Right now, I believe you have about 157, so adding some parking. And then we added option D, which puts pre-K through 6 at Bird Island. So the timeline, I kind of wanted to just go through it. So what we're looking at for a potential referendum would be October 24th, which I believe, hopefully I got that date right, of your next board meeting. We have the options and the budgets available for you guys to look through. Also, we'd be looking at phase 3 approval. So it's kind of we're coming to an end of phase 2. The difference, I'll go into what that means in a second. You can ask questions and whatever, but I'll go into more detail on what phase 3 means. And if that goes as planned, November through January would be when we would do the community survey. We would make a facility task force, which would meet multiple times, looking at the buildings, talking about the needs, talking about the options, and also do some community tours. So if people did not want to be on the task force, they can still come tour the buildings, look at the options, kind of have a voice in things, basically. And then with that, if you wanted to shoot for a May referendum, board approval would need to go in January, which then you could get the review and comments submitted by the early February, and then May 9th would be, and then obviously February for May would be the referendum campaign with a May 9th referendum vote. The nice thing is next year, there's actually 5 options for referendum. So there's February, April, May, August, and November. So if you were feeling pushed or things weren't ready, you can tap the brakes. You could go in August, you could go in November. It's whenever you're ready. This is just kind of the timeline if you were to go in May. So next steps, I just want to kind of talk about what phase 3 means. And usually you guys had asked to do things a little bit differently than we normally do. When we went into the partnership development agreement, which was back in February, maybe March.
Yeah.
Anyway, you asked that you wanted to separate phase 2 and phase 3 so you could kind of get to know us throughout the process and then move on if you're ready, basically. So what we'll come back with at the end of phase 2 is your 4 options, the budgets for those 4 options. But what phase 3 means is that it would come back and we would help you move forward. We would help you move from 4 options to 1 option, by doing the community surveys, by doing, helping with the tours, helping with the community engagement, basically. And then we would also help you with all the referendum strategy and support, the graphics, the videos, the flyers, everything that from that point on. And then if and when the referendum goes, then it's project implementation. So that's what phase 3 means. I wanted to give you guys the chance to kind of ask questions on that. So all we need from that point, it's not another contract, it's not another fee, it's nothing like that. It's basically just written authorization, so email or whatever authorizing us to move forward. And so we could talk about it tonight, like you just brought up. You don't want it thrown at you next month. You know what I mean?
Right.
And not have any time to ask questions or understand what that means. So we're just asking that you think about it, ask questions, and then if you want to move forward with phase 3, it'd be in October.
And if we go forward with phase 3, what we're agreeing to is that you help us through that, and then you're running the project.
Yes. So you're still you don't have to move forward with anything, but if you do, you do it with us. And so when we come back, we would come up with that shopping list. And so when we narrow it down to from 4 options to 1 option, then we can still fine tune it. Do you know what I mean? We look through it. Let's say I'm making up numbers, so they haven't seen the budgets at all. They're not ready. Well, let's say the option that moves forward and that the tax appetite for is like 45 million. but, or I mean, let's say the tax appetite's 40, but that option was 45. We can still play around, you know, with that shopping list and be like, okay, that concession stand's too expensive, that can be taken out. Or, you know what I mean? So nothing in those options has to stay as well. It's work with you guys to come up with the needs of your community.
And that won't just be the maintenance committee, that's gonna be all of us, right?
That would be everybody.
Okay.
But the options, do you get that through the facilities committee? Is that what you guys are working on, or is it something that
We
you
have-
kind of
so
see
the
the
options-
needs? So you said
It's
there will be
basically-
4 options. Is that
yes.
what you always do?
No.
Oh,
in fact,
this is
no,
just-
we usually
okay.
have like one option, to be
Oh,
honest.
really?
But
Oh.
because of, you know, the different dynamics here and with Bird Island and the unknown of everything. So just as a refresher, hopefully I don't have it with me, but option 1 is basically everything is at this building. And then Bird Island could still be used for gym space and, you know,
We would still
community
use that
stuff.
for gym.
Exactly. So that's option A, not 1A.
Mhm.
Option B is moving early childhood over to Bird Island. So then the kindergarten would move to these big rooms. And then, you know,
Oh,
and keep in mind, the
Mhm.
building is completely renovated and new.
Right.
You know what I mean? And all of these options.
Mhm.
Option C is moving K through 4 to Bird Island. ECFE stays here.
Mhm.
And then 5th through 12 stays here as well. So that's the other one. And then at the facility committee, we're asked to look at option D, which would be pre-K to 6 over at Bird Island. And then this would be 7 through 12. The thing we're struggling with a little bit on option D is that it leaves a lot of this building vacant.
Oh.
You know, so we're trying, do you tear it down? Do you not? You know,
Mhm.
that type of thing is what we're kind of looking at right now. So,
Okay.
but those are the 4
Okay.
options. And so it is gonna be, I mean, that's not that it's gonna be a lot of community, you know, and like I've said to every single one of you, my recommendation is just to listen to the survey, listen to the task force, listen to what the community wants,
Mhm.
you know, because it's gonna be a tough process narrowing that down.
Mhm.
Then
Yeah,
your
for sure.
budget that you give for it, that's a budget of what it costs to do it, to build it? And is that a budget on how to maintain it and how to staff it?
No. Well, we probably with a couple of those options, it would have to be in there. We're working with Lindsay to put numbers together, you know, for the O&M of it. Like if you have
Mhm.
Bird Island up and running again, we'd have, you know, the
Right.
operation and maintenance costs as well. So in the staffing, we haven't dug into that. It's mainly just the cost of it. But I do think if you went some of those routes, you'd have to do an operational element to your referendum.
Because you would have
Yeah, I think you'd
Custodial.
want that information.
cooking or
Yeah.
food service and everything
Exactly.
else.
Exactly. So that would probably have to be included in addition to the bond referendum.
Mhm.
So will we get like some really nice, clear plans to look at and all these options?
So with the options, you're still gonna get the bubble diagrams and we can kind of, you know, but it shows what they are.
Yeah,
And where the classrooms are, and
Yep.
you can look at them. And when we start, you know, to move forward with the community tours and everything, we'd have them on big signs, we'd have,
Okay.
you know, so you can see them. What I've done in the past is strategically plant those big signs in areas of the building that you want the people to see. So they can see the bad, but then see the potential of the good.
Yeah.
You know, so they're touring that part. Once you narrow it down to one option, then you get, you know, the renderings and you get, you know, everything. Once you're going to referendum and you move forward with all that, then you'll get all that.
but we will get to look at some plans and go, oh, I
Absolutely.
like that one compared to that one.
And
We can
one
compare
thing that people, it's always, because a lot of people, it's easy to go down in the weeds of those. The one thing when you, how do I say this correctly? When you go to referendum, or when you're looking at the option, let's say the office is in a place that you don't want it, that where the rooms are located on those drawings can be changed. But everything in those drawings would be included. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So like, once your referendum passes, you put together design committees with community members, with admin, with you guys, whoever wants to be on it, and you come up with a design that meets your needs. So we're just kind of, this is what we think it should be, but that could change.
I think too, it'd be really important, we've already gotten some feedback from the strategic planning, it'd be fun to sit as the facility committee, get feedback from them and as a board and get feedback from all three and throw those into those options. Now you've got a nice, well-rounded bunch of people.
Well, one thing, when I say facility task force, what I recommend, and I've said this, what I would recommend is you start with maybe the facility committee and then you open it up to the community. So anyone that was on that strategic planning committee, they could be on the task force. So you don't turn anyone away. If they want to be on the facility task force, they come in, they're on this, it can be 50 people if you want it.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on turning anybody away, but so far with the plans, you've got input from the administration and the teachers. It'd be fun to see take those plans a little step further and see what the facility people have to say, because we've got people that have built big buildings and see what their input is. And it'd be fun as us, we're gonna have to do the final approval before it goes out to the people anyway. The board needs to see that too. We should have some input.
No, I guess I'm not following
Yeah.
exactly. Like, I'm sorry.
Because she did bring the plans, the options to the facilities committee.
Yeah, but we only talked about, we ended our meeting because they only went through option one. We didn't even go, we only
We went
talked.
through all three, A, B, and C,
And we added 4.
and then we added the fourth.
What I'm saying is that right now, the board has not seen any of that.
We showed those last month.
On the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't get
That's
anything.
fair. And
Yeah,
you totally
yeah,
can have
yeah.
those. 100%.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to look
But like
at it.
when we sat at that facility committee meeting, we basically listened. So it'd be fun now that we've had a chance to look at them to come back as a facility and say, hey, I think this is great. How about this? And add to
And
that
we can
too.
do that.
I think that would be really
Absolutely.
fun for the facility people to do that. And as a board,
Yeah.
have the
And
board look at that
for
and say,
sure.
hey, we
I
would
mean,
like
we're
this.
happy to share them with whatever. Like, absolutely. I mean, basically with the facility task force, you'd be doing that too. Like, you'd be coming in and we take their recommendations, and then what happens at the end of a few meetings, they come back and give their recommendation to the board. And in the end, it's the board's decision, but so that's how you're getting. And then you also take input from the tours, like they can give their feedback and they can, and we take that, bring it back to the board as well. But I'm happy to share that for sure. Our plan before we bring, hopefully in October, we can sit down with the facility committee again and go through, honestly, the budgets and the budgets and the options.
When Sandy had asked about being able to see the
Yeah, I'd
plans,
like to see.
I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is not going to be an architectural
Right.
No,
drum.
No.
absolutely not.
I just want to see
Okay,
what their
I wanted
plans
to make sure
are.
And
everybody understood.
absolutely, I can share one thing, and I'm happy to share, just remember, don't go down, don't look at this room and be, like I just said, you know what I mean? It should go on the other side of the building.
No,
You know what I mean?
no,
Because
no.
that can be done at a later time. Like, they're just,
Mhm.
it's just like, okay, this has, a sped room and this, make sure that everything's covered. It should be
Exactly.
done.
Yeah, that's, I
Right,
just kind of
yeah,
want
and
to see, oh, what are they
absolutely,
all
for sure.
looking at here?
Yep, definitely. We can get you those. Is there any other questions on moving to phase 3? Okay, I'm gonna do probably a very similar thing in the board meeting, so you'll hear it again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Well, and that concludes what we have for the work session, unless somebody else has anything to add to what we've talked about. So with that, I think we'll just take a little break and we'll see you at 7 o'clock.
Sounds good.